In today's video, I want to show you how to create this wintry Procreate watercolor doodles piece. It's going to be a super chill video where we are going to explore how to create this beautiful watercolor effect, draw the doodles, write a few words here, and then also how to create the little gold accent throughout this piece. Let's start by creating new canvas. The width is 4096 pixels and the height is 5464 pixels. The DPI is 300. And then we're going to tap Create. What makes the watercolor doodles really nice is by having a watercolor background paper. We're going to use one of the brushes from my Paper Textures brush set. I'm going to use the iPad Watercolor Paper 5 brush, and then I'm going to paint with a black color. So now we're just going to fill the whole canvas, and this creates a really nice watercolor texture. Open up the Layers panel and then add a few layers over the top. And then what we're going to do is bring this layer with the texture all the way up to the top, like this. And then we're going to change the blend mode to multiply. This now means that all the elements that we are going to draw below this layer will inherit the watercolor texture. You can also lock this layer so that you're not accidentally drawing on it. The next thing we're going to do is set up a grid so that we can draw our rectangles. So we're going to tap the wrench, canvas, and then turn on the drawing guide. Now we're going to edit the drawing guide and increase the grid size. You want to make it large enough so that you have 9 squares showing here. And then move the squares into the center of your canvas and tap Done. And now we're going to draw a watercolor square in each of these grid cells. Make sure that you are starting on a new layer for this. The brush that I'm going to use is the iPad Watercolor Leaves brush from my Florals painting set. If you don't have this brush set, you can also grab one of the free watercolor brushes that I have available on my website. I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger. And then for the color scheme, I'm going to use the Winter Landscape color palette. If you want to find out how I've created this palette, I'm going to leave a link to another video where you can see how I've created this. You can pick any color to start with and then start drawing in the squares like this. I recommend that you paint the whole square without lifting up your Apple Pencil. That way you can create this beautiful texture, and then it also creates a little bit of a dried edge around your square. Now we're going to select another color and we're going to keep drawing our squares all the way around. What you want to do here is try out some different colors. Make sure that you make some of your squares a little bit lighter, some of them a little bit darker, and vary up the blues and the grays a little bit. You can't really do anything wrong here. You can also change the colors later, and I will show you how to do this. I'm just going to draw this in. Alright, so now this looks nice. Now we're going to resize our squares and make them rectangles. And we're going to use the arrow tool and then use that freeform select tool here. And so now you can push these in and then create the rectangles. You can also make them a little bit bigger if you'd like to. And then if you turn on that snapping tool, this is how you can place your rectangles exactly in the middle of the canvas. We don't need our guidelines anymore, so now we can turn them off. So you can see that we've got this really nice watercolor texture already, but let me show you how we can make this even nicer. We're going to open up the Layers panel, and then we're going to set the layer above our colors to Blend Mode Overlay. And then we're going to choose Black. And we're going to change our brush to the Petals Wet on Wet brush. Again, if you don't have this brush set, you can also use one of the free brushes for this. Now we're going to add in some shadows and make the edges a little bit darker. So this is super nice, and this is really where the watercolor texture comes out even nicer. So we're going to go all the way around the edges here, and you can see the more black you paint on this, the more color it's taking on, and it just creates this really beautiful pattern. You don't want to fill it all up, you just want to be quite careful, maybe around the edges a little bit. And then if you feel that you've painted too much, you can switch to your smudging tool with the same brush, and you can now smudge this out and create this really, really cool visual interest like this. Now we're going to do this all the way around. You can also try pressing down the brush quite hard, and you can see it gives you these really super cool, nice watercolory splotches. Just going to zoom it in so that you can see how this works. This is really, really nice. And then we can smudge it out if it's too dark. But of course, this is completely up to you how much of this you would like to bring into your artwork. And now you can see how much the colors have popped by adding this additional layer. This makes a huge difference. Now you might not be super happy with all the colors that you've chosen, and now is the time to change it. Go back to your initial layer and then use the freehand selection tool to highlight one of your squares. For example, this middle one here, I think this is a little bit too light. We're going to be painting on with white, and this is probably going to be too light, but it's not a problem because now we can choose our adjustments. Tap on hue, saturation and brightness, and now you can make this a little bit darker. And this is so much nicer already. I think this works really nicely. You can also play with the saturation a little bit and maybe bring it a little bit more into that gray area. And I like this now. And now you can go all the way around and change the color of your squares if you don't like them. What I'm looking out for here is that I have a nice variety of different colors so that the composition looks nice and balanced. And it looks really nice now. Another little trick I want to show you, just in case you're not happy with that shape that you've drawn, is you can use the liquify tool. Maybe here you can see there's a little bulge here. So if you don't like this, you can use the freehand selection tool. You can select your shape and then in the adjustments menu, select liquify and then select the edge tool. And now you can bring this in a little bit. And what's nice about this is that it's not going to get rid of your dried edge. You can just bring this in ever so slightly and just adjust it. You can also use the push tool and maybe bring this part out a little bit more and just straighten it up ever so slightly. And so now it looks a little bit straighter. Let's do it with this one as well. And now we're ready to paint our doodles. Make sure that you start every doodle on a new layer just in case you're making a mistake, and then it's much easier to go back. The brush I'm going to choose to draw my doodles is the Love Letters brush, which is part of my Dream Lettering set. But again, if you don't have this brush set, you can use any of your favorite drawing brushes for this as well. And then I'm going to use the white color. And now let's start doodling. So now that we've finished all the doodles, it's time to add those little golden highlights. You don't want to add them too much. You just want to pick certain areas of your doodles where it makes sense to add them, just to give your composition that extra pop. And in order to do that, we want to find a gold background image that we can use for this. I recommend looking for this on pexels.com. I'm going to leave a link to this download in the description of my video. All you have to do is download this to your iPad and then we can use this in Procreate. So we are going to add this file now. So we're going to go to Insert File, and then we're going to import this from the Downloads section of our iPad. Now it has imported it sort of randomly in between my doodles, but it's not the problem. I'm going to show you now how we are going to use this, and I'm just going to move this to the bottom of my stack for now, and I'm going to turn the visibility off. I'm just going to put it there so that I have a copy for later, because I don't want to have to re-import it for every one of my images. So now we're going to duplicate the image, and then we're going to move it above the layer where we want to apply the gold, and we're going to start with our baubles. So now I'm just going to move this above the baubles, and I'm going to turn this layer back on. And so now what you want to do is rotate the image and then make it small enough enough so that it just fits on top of your square and that it covers all your baubles like this. This looks good. And so now what we want to do, this is the trick now. So you need to tap on that layer thumbnail and then you need to turn on that clipping mask. And so now you can see it has filled all our doodles with gold. This is amazing, but this is not quite what we want. This would be quite a bit too much gold. All right, so now what we want to do is remove some of that gold. And of course, what we could do now is go in on this image and we could just erase the part that we don't want. And then the white would come back from underneath here. But what if you make a mistake? You can't then go in and paint the gold back in. So what we're going to do instead is actually using a mask. Tap on the golden thumbnail and then tap on mask. And this hasn't done much yet. So what we're going to do now is invert this mask. So we're going to tap on that mask thumbnail and then tap invert. And now it has hidden all the gold again. But now comes the fun part, because now what we can do is paint in the gold only to the areas where we want the gold to be. You can use any of your favorite brushes for this. I'm going to use that totally crispy monoline brush simply because I like using this brush. It's quite precise. So now we can just put the golden highlights exactly where we want them to be. And now the beauty of using the mask as well is that if you make a mistake, for example, if you're accidentally painting here, you can use the eraser and then you can just erase it again. But you're not erasing the actual pixels, you're just erasing the mask. And so now I've erased a little bit too much, so I can swap back to my painting brush and now I can paint the gold back in. And so really this is like magic. And then I think I want these lines here to be gold, and then maybe some of the dots would be nice to be gold as well, so we can paint in the dots with gold. And this is super easy and fun to do. So now we're going to repeat this for the rest of our doodles. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take a copy of the original image and then we're going to move it above the layer where we want our golden highlights to be. Turn the visibility on and then rotate this and then fit it on top of your doodle like this. Turn on the clipping mask. And then we're going to add a mask and we're going to invert this mask. And now we can paint with white on top of this mask. So for the little snowman here, I thought it would be nice if he had a golden scarf. And now he looks really cute. Next up is that landscape. And I think for the landscape, I just want to have the sun golden. It doesn't have to fit perfectly. It just needs to be above the element that you want to color in golden. So we're going to do clipping mask, invert the mask, and now we can color in the sun with gold. And then here for the candle, I thought it would be nice to add maybe a little bit of wax that's kind of dripping down. And so you can just add a little line here with gold as well, which looks really nice. And then maybe at the bottom you can add a little bit as well. Alright, next up we have our little Christmas tree here, and I thought it would be nice to have a few golden dots here. And then here with our little wreath, I just thought it would be nice to have the berries all golden, and then they stand out a little bit more from the background. And then for our little gingerbread man, he's got the little embellishments, so we're going to put the gold on that. And there you have it. This is our wintry watercolor doodles design with the little golden highlights. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And then I'm also going to put up another couple of videos with similar doodles so you can get some more inspiration for your next art project. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the comments.